The year was 1865, and death moved faster than the wind across the Dakota plains. Clara Vaughn woke to the scent of blood. It was faint, metallic, wrong. She sat bolt upright in her bed, heart pounding like a war drum. The cabin was still, too still. No fire crackled in the hearth. No gentle creak of Eli's cot. Just the hush of early morning, and that smell, that awful smell. She snatched her rifle from the wall and stepped barefoot onto the floorboards, wincing at the cold. "Eli," she whispered, voice caught between dream and dread. No answer. She crossed the cabin, every step sharp with tension. Her fingers trembled as she pushed open the door. Outside, dawn had barely broken. Pale blue light skimmed across the frosted grass. Their lone horse stood tethered by the corral, ears twitching nervously. But the yard, Lord have mercy, the yard was wrong. The wooden bucket lay tipped beside the well. One of Eli's boots rested in the mud, and beside it a smear of blood across the porch steps, small, like a cut from a child's hand. Clara's breath caught. Her world shrank to a pinpoint. She ran. Her skirt caught on the thorns lining the fence. She tore through them, eyes scanning every inch of earth. More blood, scattered footprints. 3 men, by the looks of it. Heavy boots, spurs, and dragging marks. They'd taken him. She dropped to her knees beside the print of his bare foot, small, perfect. Her baby. A scream ripped from her throat, raw and gut-deep. The prairie swallowed it whole. She searched the barn, the woodshed, the empty smokehouse. Nothing. No sign of a struggle, just quiet efficiency. They knew what they were doing. Whoever they were, they'd stolen her child like he was a sack of grain. Clara rose slow, blood pounding in her ears. Her grief calcified into something colder. She went inside and lit the fire. The flame crackled, too cheerful for morning. She packed her husband's old saddlebag with cartridges, dried meat, and the compass he'd left her when he died at Cold Harbor. She took the knife from beneath her mattress, a gift from her father on her wedding day. The blade was notched, the grip worn smooth. She'd only used it for cutting rope and skinning rabbits. She'd use it different now. She strapped the rifle to her back and mounted the mare without saddling her. Time mattered more than comfort. The tracks led east toward the old dry creek. Her face was set like stone. The wind snapped at her shawl, but she didn't feel it. By mid-morning, she reached the town of Fallows Ridge, a dirt-choked excuse for civilization with a general store, a church, and a sheriff who spent more time drunk than deputizing. Sheriff Monroe leaned against the post outside the saloon, hat tipped low. He squinted as she approached, scowling like she'd interrupted a pleasant nap. "Clara Vaughn?" he asked, chewing a toothpick. "They took my boy," she said. 3 men, headed east, early this morning. He didn't straighten, didn't reach for a pen, just shrugged. "You sure he didn't run off?" "Boys that age, hellions, all of them." Her voice cracked, but not with sorrow, with fury. "There's blood on my porch, Sheriff." His boot was left in the mud. Monroe spat into the dirt. "Could be Injuns." "No. Boots. Spurs. White men." Her tone dared him to dismiss her again. Still, he didn't move. "Lot of men passing through. Army boys, bounty hunters. Not all of them civil. But this ain't a thing I can chase without names." "I'll give you a name," she snapped. "Thorn Carver. You remember it." The toothpick stopped moving. He looked at her then, truly looked. "Where'd you hear that name?" "One of the men who passed through the trading post last week," said Carver, "and 2 others were looking for a fugitive. Mentioned heading this way." The sheriff scratched at his jaw. "Carver's a ghost. Ex-militia. They say he's got more blood on his hands than any Sioux chief. If he's in these parts, you best keep your head low, Clara. Let this lie." She stepped forward, eyes like sharpened glass. "He has my son." Monroe hesitated. "Then I'm sorry for your loss." She didn't curse him, didn't cry. She simply turned and walked back to her horse. "Don't do this," he called after her. "You'll get yourself killed." She didn't look back. Death wasn't something she feared anymore. By nightfall, she'd followed the tracks into the canyons that ran like scars through the prairie. The moon hung pale above her, silvering the stone. Coyotes yipped somewhere in the distance. The trail narrowed. Riders had passed through recently. Fresh dung, broken branches, ashes still warm from fire. She dismounted and tied the mare in the brush. A flicker of firelight danced through the rocks ahead. She crept forward, staying low, using the darkness like a cloak. 3 figures sat around the embers of a dying campfire. One had his back turned, cleaning a rifle. The other 2 were talking low. One chuckled, swigging from a bottle. A boy's scarf lay beside one of the bedrolls. Eli's, her hand clenched around the hilt of her knife. She waited, heart thudding so loud she feared it would betray her. One of the men stood and stumbled toward the edge of camp to relieve himself, muttering to himself. Alone. Clara struck. She lunged from the shadows and drove her knee into the back of his leg. He went down with a grunt. She clamped one hand over his mouth and pressed the blade to his neck. Make a sound and I'll carve out your tongue. He froze. She leaned close. Where is the boy? He didn't answer, so she pressed harder, drawing a line of blood. He's alive, the man whispered. Carver said he was worth more that way. We handed him off to someone else. We're meeting at Devil's Crossing in 3 days' time. Who did you hand him to? The man hesitated. Clara twisted the blade slightly. Fella named Briggs. Wears a red bandana and smells like piss. He's riding ahead with the kid. She eased the knife from his throat. The man started to breathe. Then he reached for a hidden revolver at his ankle. She stabbed him before he got it halfway out. Once, twice, 3 times. She rolled off him, panting. Her hands were slick with blood. Her ears rang with the sound of her own heartbeat. The other 2 men stirred at the noise. One shouted, Hank! Clara ducked low and scrambled back through the rocks. A shot rang out behind her. Another. Sparks flared as bullets hit stone. She ran like the devil was at her heels. She mounted her mare and rode hard through the brush, not stopping until the hills swallowed the sounds of pursuit. Only when the sky turned the color of bruised lavender did she slow. She dismounted and staggered to a stream, washed the blood from her hands, though it felt like it would never come off. She collapsed beneath a tree, body aching, eyes burning. In the branches above, a whippoorwill sang a lonely song. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. By the time the sun rose again, she was already riding. 2 days passed in a blur of heat and dust. Her body grew numb to the ache. The mare carried her over broken terrain with quiet determination. She drank little, ate less, but her eyes never stopped scanning. By the 3rd afternoon, she reached a ridge overlooking the ravine known as Devil's Crossing. A narrow stone bridge arched over a dry gulch. Below, a cluster of tents and lean-tos formed a rough outlaw camp. Men milled about with rifles, cards, and bottles of rock gut. Horses stomped and snorted in a crude pen. She counted heads. 12, maybe 13. She searched for Eli. There, near the largest tent, a boy sat with his hands bound and a rag in his mouth. His face was swollen, one eye blackened, but he was breathing. She bit her lip to keep from crying out. Her knees nearly gave. She slunk back from the ledge. No frontal assault would work. Not alone. Not yet. She'd need help. Or a miracle. As she turned to make her retreat, a voice called out behind her. Looking for someone? She spun around, raising her rifle. A man stood in the shadow of a boulder, hands raised. He was lean, sinewy, with braids tied back and an old cavalry coat draped over one shoulder. I ain't here to hurt you, he said, but if you're hunting thorn carver, you'll need more than that, pea shooter. Who the hell are you? Name's Levi Black Elk, and I want him dead, just as bad as you. She studied his eyes. They weren't kind, but they were honest. And why's that, she asked. Because he killed my brother. Burned half my village to the ground while wearing a Union uniform. Now he wears a bounty badge, like it means something. She lowered the rifle, but only slightly. You knew I was following him? He nodded. Been watching you since you left Fallows Ridge. Figured you'd either get yourself killed or do something interesting. And what now? He smiled faintly. Now we make a plan. Clara looked back toward the canyon, toward her son, and for the first time in days, hope flickered in her chest, ragged, wild, and hungry for blood. They took her boy. They'd pay for that, one grave at a time. The night wind swept down through the gorge like a whisper from the grave. Clara crouched beside Levi Black Elk, both of them hidden beneath a shelf of red stone that overlooked the outlaw camp below. Fires flickered in the hollow, throwing gold light across tents and shadows. Laughter drifted up in waves, rough, drunken, ugly. She didn't blink. Her eyes were fixed on the boy bound near the large tent. Her boy. His chin rested on his chest. He didn't move. "You sure he's alive?" Levi murmured. "I know my son." Levi shifted, the old cavalry coat rustling. "Then we best act before they decide he's worth more dead." Clara's voice was low, but sharp. "You said you wanted Carver dead. Why?" "Same reason you want him." He didn't elaborate. His eyes were hard. She understood without needing details. The West was full of men like Carver, and Levi's silence told her more than words would. They backed away from the ledge and settled beneath the low limbs of a juniper. A sliver of moon cast silver lines across the dust. Clara picked at a strip of jerky, jaw tight. Her hands trembled from exhaustion, but her mind wouldn't rest. Levi finally broke the silence. "Storm's comin'. 2 days, maybe 3. These men won't linger once the sky turns. I'm not waiting 3 days." "Then you need a distraction." She glanced sideways. "You offering?" "I've got dynamite. Enough to make a few of 'em think the mountain's fallin' down." Her brow lifted. "You always carry dynamite?" "Only when I mean to blow things up." Clara almost smiled. Almost. They spent the next morning scouting the ravine's edge and placing charges along the western ridge where the outlaws kept their horses. Levi moved like smoke, silent and quick. Clara covered him with her rifle, her breath catching every time a guard drifted too close. When they returned to their perch, she collapsed beside him, her legs trembling. "I never killed a man until 2 nights ago," she said. Levi didn't look at her. "That won't be the last." "I know." She paused. "What if I lose him? What if we go down there and I can't save him?" He didn't answer right away. The wind moved through the canyons like a hymn. Then he said, "You already saved him. You're still breathing and you didn't run." They waited until the sun dipped low, throwing long shadows across the rocks. Then Clara slipped down the backside of the ridge with Levi at her side. Every step was a gamble. Every gust of wind that shook the branches made her flinch. They crouched behind a rock slide as 2 outlaws ambled past, laughing about whiskey and dice. They didn't see the knife in Clara's hand until it was too late. She lunged fast and clean. Levi tackled the second man and choked the life from him without a sound. They dragged the bodies behind the boulders, breath ragged. A sliver of firelight danced across their boots. Clara kept moving. When they reached the edge of the camp, Levi whispered, "I'll set the charge near the corral. When it goes, you've got 1 minute to reach your boy." 1 minute, she repeated. Her pulse was thunder in her ears. Levi disappeared into the dark. She waited. Time stretched. Then the world exploded. A thunderous boom split the night, followed by screams, hooves, and the panicked shout of men. Flames erupted where the horses had been tethered, scattering animals and riders alike. Gunfire cracked in confusion, men firing at shadows. Clara dashed forward, rifle slung across her back, knife still dripping from earlier. She ducked past the edge of a tent and rolled to the ground. Smoke curled through the air. Another blast rocked the ridge. Somewhere to the east, Levi hooped like a madman, drawing the fight his way. Clara reached the main tent. She slid inside, blade ready. Briggs sat beside the boy, a bottle in hand. He looked up, startled, eyes wide. He reached for his pistol. She didn't hesitate. The knife landed in his chest with a sickening thud. He gasped, mouth gaping like a fish, then slumped forward. Clara dropped beside Eli and ripped the gag for his mouth. "Ma," he croaked, blinking. She cut his bonds. "It's me, baby. It's me." He flung his arms around her, and she almost buckled. "Can you walk?" He nodded, dazed, trembling. "We've got to go. Now." They slipped out into the chaos, weaving through shadows. Clara held him tight, sheltering him from stray bullets and stumbling bodies. A man lurched from the darkness, swinging a club. Clara shot him point-blank in the gut. He fell like a sack of oats. They reached the ridge as Levi reappeared, face streaked with soot and blood. "You got him." Clara nodded, breathless. Levi pointed toward the ravine's mouth. "There's a way out east, narrow trail through the stone. We take it, they can't follow on horseback." They ran. Rocks tumbled beneath their boots, and Eli clung to Clara's side like a shadow. Behind them, the canyon echoed with chaos, gunfire, shouts, burning screams. The trail was steep, barely wide enough for 2 feet side by side. Clara's limbs shook. Her breath tore through her lungs. But she didn't stop. Not until the fire was behind them. They made camp in a dry wash 3 miles east. Clara wrapped Eli in Levi's coat, then washed the dirt and blood from his face with trembling hands. His lip was split. A welt covered one cheek. But he was alive. He stared at the fire, silent. "You hungry?" she asked. He nodded but didn't speak. She fed him dried beans and a sliver of jerky, then held him until his breathing evened out. Levi sat across from them, cleaning his knife. "You saved us," Clara said. "I told you I wanted Carver dead." "You still do." He looked up, more than ever. Clara nodded slowly. "Then we finish this." She looked down at Eli, asleep in her lap, face streaked with dust and tears. "We finish it," she whispered, "for every mother who couldn't." In the morning they moved slow. Eli was too weak to ride far, and Clara's body throbbed with every step. They crossed a creek at noon, where Clara bathed Eli and made him laugh with a crude story about a prairie dog and a stubborn mule. It was the first smile she'd seen in days. Levi scouted ahead, silent as always. He returned near sundown with news. "Carver's not dead. I saw him ride out, headed toward the painted bluffs." Clara stiffened. "Why?" Levi shrugged. "That's where he's hiding the gold. Stolen army payroll. Word is he's planning to disappear south before the snow. Then we go after him." Levi frowned. "The boy's weak." Clara's eyes darkened. "We leave him with the priest in Dust Hollow. He'll be safe there. Then we go." Levi studied her for a long moment. "You mean to kill him yourself?" "I dug one grave already," she said. "I'm not afraid to dig another." They rode 2 days through wind and silence. Clara left Eli with the priest, who promised to keep him fed, and watched. She kissed him once hard and whispered, "I'll be back. I promise." Eli clung to her hand. "You're going to stop the bad man?" She nodded. "I won't stop until I do." Then they rode. The painted bluffs rose from the plains like the bones of the earth, red and jagged. The wind screamed through the cliffs like some ancient god. Levi pointed toward a narrow canyon. "There. That's where he's camped. 2 men with him now, maybe 3. Clara checked her rifle. "Then we wait for night." They did. As the stars bled into the black sky, Clara thought about the boy she'd raised. The child who chased fireflies and drew horses in the dirt. The one who held her hand when the fever took her husband. They tried to take that boy from her, but they didn't know her heart. They didn't know what a mother would do. She turned to Levi, her voice like stone. "Let's dig the graves." The stars over the painted bluffs flickered like they knew what was coming. Clara lay belly down on a sandstone shelf, her cheek pressed to the dust, eyes fixed on the mouth of the narrow pass below. A campfire burned low in a circle of jagged rocks. 3 figures sat around it, 2 younger men laughing over a bottle, and one who didn't laugh at all. Thorne Carver. He looked older than she'd imagined, but not weaker. Thick-shouldered, dark eyes, and a deep scar that split his jaw like a rope burn. His coat bore the faded brass buttons of a Union captain, though they were dulled with blood and years. The way he moved, slow, certain, told Clara he feared nothing. Not the wind, not the law, not even God. But he didn't know her. She turned back to Levi, crouched beside her, finishing the fuse on a final charge. "How close can you get it?" she asked. "Close enough," he said. "It won't kill them, not outright, but it'll shake the rocks enough to scatter them. That's all I need." She checked her rifle again, Then the small revolver strapped to her thigh. Her palms were dry. No fear left. Only fire. Levi watched her carefully. You sure you want to do this? I don't want to, she said. I have to. Then I'll cover you. He slipped down the slope with the quiet grace of a mountain lion. Clara waited, counted her breath. 1, 2, 3. A minute passed. Then another. Then the explosion tore the canyon in half. Flames leapt skyward. Dust churned into the stars. Rocks tumbled from the ledges, and screams echoed off the cliffs. Clara didn't hesitate. She slid down the slope, boots hitting shale and gravel, and landed hard near the lower ledge. The camp was chaos. Fire licking the tents, one man crushed beneath a fallen boulder, the other limping away with a bloodied leg. But Carver stood in the center of it all, rifle drawn, scanning the darkness. She stepped into the firelight. He turned. Their eyes met, and he smiled. Well, he said, voice rough as pine bark, I figured you'd come. She raised her rifle. He didn't move. Is the boy alive? He asked. Clara didn't answer. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Didn't mean to hurt him, he continued, calm as a man ordering coffee. Just needed him quiet for a bit. He's a witness, you understand. You broke his nose, she said. He tilted his head. Did I? That weren't me. Briggs hit him. He's dead, I take it? You're next. He sighed. Shame. You and me could have made a hell of a pair. You got grit. You're gonna dig 3 graves tonight, Carver. 1 for your men. 2 for you. He chuckled. That math don't check. She fired. The bullet grazed his shoulder. He stumbled, cursed, then rolled behind a fallen crate. The fight began. Gunfire lit the canyon like lightning. Levi emerged from the dark, picking off one of the wounded outlaws with a clean shot to the neck. Carver returned fire, and Levi ducked behind a boulder. Clara advanced through the smoke, firing once, twice. Her shots missed, but forced Carver to retreat toward the rock wall. Where's your boy now, huh? He shouted. Back with the preacher? That soft little thing? What's he gonna be when he grows up, Taylor? Shopkeeper? He'll be alive, she growled. Not like you. She moved left, circling wide. Levi flanked from the opposite side, closing a noose. Carver realized it too late. His rifle clicked empty. Clara emerged from the shadows, revolver drawn. On your knees, she said. He sneered. You don't have the stomach. She stepped closer. Kneel. His gaze flicked to the canyon mouth, no escape. He dropped his rifle, slowly, and sank to his knees. You gonna shoot me now? He said. That what this is? No, Clara said. You're gonna dig? He blinked. What? You're gonna dig 3 graves. For the ones you used. For the ones you killed. And when you're done, I'll decide if you get one too. Carver's laugh was short and bitter. You think that's justice? No, she said. It's mercy. She tossed him a small spade from the wreckage. He stared at it. Then, without a word, he began to dig. Levi watched silently as Clara stood over him, revolver trained on his back. The fire crackled behind them. Blood soaked the dirt. The canyon reeked of sulfur and smoke. Carver dug one grave, then another. Sweat poured from his brow. His breathing turned ragged. By the third, he paused, leaning on the shovel. This enough, he rasped. Clara stepped forward. No. She grabbed his arm and twisted it hard behind him. He dropped to the ground with a grunt, face pressed into the dirt. You know what you did, she whispered. To Levi's people. To my boy. You wore a badge like it meant something, like it gave you the right. I was a soldier, he muttered. I followed orders. No. Levi said from behind her. You hid behind them. Carver said nothing. Clara stood over him, weapon steady, but she didn't pull the trigger. Instead, she reached into her coat and pulled out a length of rope. You're gonna hang, she said, in Dust Hollow, in front of the preacher, in front of my son, and he'll know what justice looks like. Carver's eyes narrowed. You drag me across the prairie? No, Levi said. Asterisk I asterisk will. Carver chuckled, but there was no humor left. You two don't have the guts. Clara leaned down, close enough to smell the sweat on him. Try me. They bound him hand and foot. Levi built a crude travois from broken tent poles, lashed it to the saddle, and tied Carver's wrists to the frame. He groaned with every jolt as they dragged him through the dust. It took them 4 days to reach Dust Hollow. The preacher stood at the edge of the church steps as they arrived, face pale with disbelief. "I didn't think you'd return," he said. Clara lifted Eli from the bench where he'd waited, ran a hand through his tangled hair. "I said I would." Levi dismounted, yanked Carver off the travois, and shoved him to his knees in the dirt. A crowd gathered, farmers, traders, women with babies on their hips. The sheriff stood silent, hat in hand. He knew what this was. Clara stepped forward. "This man took my son," she said. "He beat him, bound him, left him to die. He killed others, burned homes, rode under flags he disgraced." Carver lifted his chin. "I did what I had to." Clara looked at the boy beside her. "And now we'll do what we must." They didn't use the gallows. They used a cottonwood tree. Carver didn't beg. He just looked out at the crowd, defiant to the end. But when the rope tightened, his courage went with his breath. When it was over, the preacher said a quiet prayer. The sheriff buried the body in a shallow grave behind the church. No marker. Clara sat on the porch with Eli that night, the boy curled against her side. She watched the wind ripple through the wheat fields and listened to the frogs singing down by the creek. Levi approached, quiet as dusk. "I'll be heading north," he said. "River country." Clara nodded. "You've got blood on your hands." "So do you?" She looked at her palms. "Maybe we all do." He turned to leave, then paused. "If you ever ride that way, I got a cabin by the falls. Plenty of space." She didn't answer, just met his eyes. There was something between them now, respect, and something else neither of them named. He tipped his hat, rode off. Clara sat with Eli until the stars came out, blanket wrapped tight around them. He whispered, "You're not scared anymore, are you, Ma?" "No," she said softly. "Not of men like him." "Are they gone?" She didn't answer right away. "Most of them," she said. "The rest just haven't met the right mother yet." He laughed once, tired and warm. Later, after she tucked him into bed, Clara stood alone on the porch and looked out across the empty plains. The land was quiet again, but not still. Not ever. The wind carried stories, always had. Some of them faded with time. Others carved their names into stone. And some, like this one, burned so hot they lit the night. So, what do we take from this tale? Maybe it's this: when justice won't come, love will ride in its place. And sometimes it rides with a rifle, a rope, and eyes that no longer cry. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Because the frontier wasn't just a place. It was a test of will, and she passed. The rain came hard across the plains, drumming down like hooves on hardpan earth. Clara Vaughn rode with her head low, water soaking her coat, eyes fixed on the horizon where a black thread of smoke twisted above the tree-line. The preacher's words still echoed behind her, words she hadn't asked for. "They'll come looking, Clara. Men like Carver don't ride alone forever. He was part of something bigger. There'll be vengeance." She didn't answer then. She just mounted her horse, kissed Eli's forehead, and promised to be back before sunrise. But the weight in her gut told her she wouldn't sleep tonight. Levi Black Elk rode beside her, silent as ever. The brim of his hat funneled rain down his back, and his rifle lay across his lap, wrapped in oiled cloth. He didn't ask why she came. He didn't need to. Carver may have hung, but the fire he sparked hadn't gone out. Word had spread. Clara Vaughn, the woman who hunted down a killer and made him dig his own grave. That kind of story drew flies, bounty men, ghosts, brothers. And in the town of Red Hollow, a name surfaced like a bullet rising in a barrel: Malden Carver. Thorne's older brother, bank robber, war deserter, deadlier than his kin. They'd heard he was gathering his crew. 5 men, no law. Clara tightened the reins as the wind howled. Her mare snorted, spooked by the lightning crackling across the sky. Levi raised a hand and pointed to a ridge just ahead. "Smoke's fresh," he said. "Camped near the canyon split." Clara slid off her horse and dropped low, moving through the brush. Her boots squelched in the mud, her breath even, steady. She was no longer the woman who shook when a man raised his voice. No longer the widow baking cornbread with a shotgun on her shelf. She was something else now. Something harder. At the edge of the ridge, she dropped flat and looked down. A camp sat nestled in the shadow of two crooked boulders. 6 horses. 2 tents. A fire burning low beneath a spit of blackened meat. 3 men sat around the flames, rifles close, eyes sharp. One stood. He was tall, broad across the shoulders, with a mustache that curled like a villain in dime novels. His coat was dark, slick with rain, and on his chest a silver pendant carved like an eagle's claw. Same as Thorne's. Malden Carver. She recognized the way he scanned the darkness. Like a predator, waiting for the brush to move. Levi crouched beside her, eyes narrowed. That's him. She nodded. It's time. Levi didn't argue. He pulled a flare from his pack, homemade, wrapped in red cloth and sulfur, then passed it to her. 1 minute after it lights, I shoot the left tent. You take the fire pit. Clara took the flare and struck it. Flame bloomed, bright red and hissing. She tossed it down the slope. Chaos followed. The flare lit the wet ground like the sky was on fire. One man shouted, stumbling backward, knocking the meat off the spit. Levi's shot rang out, punching through canvas and flesh. Screams tore the night in half. Clara was already moving, sprinting down the rocks, revolver in hand. A man raised his rifle. She shot him through the eye. Another lunged from the shadows. She met him with her blade, burying it deep in his side before he could draw breath. Malden spun, firing wild. The bullet grazed her shoulder, spinning her backward. Pain flared white hot, but she didn't fall. She dropped low and fired. The shot clipped his thigh. He cursed, staggered, and fired again, missing wide. Levi charged from the left, tackling a man who rose behind Clara. The two of them rolled in the mud, fists flying, blood mixing with rain. Clara turned to Malden, who now limped toward the horses, trying to mount one-handed. Don't you run, she growled. He froze, breathing heavy, then turned, raising both hands. Easy now, he said, voice slick as oil. I ain't the one you want. I didn't take your boy. She raised her gun. No, he said, quickly. But I know who did. Thorne was part of a crew. Bigger crew. Men who don't take kindly to his handgun. You think they'll let this go? You're lying. He smiled. No, ma'am. I'm telling you the end of your story ain't near. It's just getting started. Clara hesitated. Rain poured off her hat, down her brow into her eyes. Her shoulder throbbed, blood soaking her sleeve. Her pulse pounded so loud, she almost didn't hear Levi behind her. Clara, he said, we've got another problem. She turned. The man Levi had fought now lay dead. But beside him, on the rocks behind the camp, stood a boy. Barefoot, soaked, rifle in his shaking hands. Couldn't have been older than 13. His eyes were wide with terror, fixed on Clara. His finger curled on the trigger. She dropped her weapon. Don't. He didn't lower the rifle. Malden smiled. That's my nephew. Thorne's boy. Didn't think he'd make it out here. Looks like he did. The boy's face twisted. You killed my pa. Clara kept her voice calm. He hurt my son. He was all I had. I know. You gonna kill me too? She shook her head. No, but if you pull that trigger, it won't bring him back. The boy wavered. Malden hissed, do it, kid. She deserves it. Levi raised his rifle slowly. Put it down, Clara whispered. Tears streamed down the boy's face, mixing with rain. Then he dropped the rifle and collapsed, sobbing into the dirt. Clara lowered her hands. Levi moved in, quick and careful, kicking the weapon away and pulling the boy back. Malden cursed and made a move, but Clara was already on him. Her fist cracked across his jaw, dropping him to his knees. He spat blood. You gonna hang me too? She looked down at him, breath ragged. No, she said. You're gonna ride east and tell your crew what happened here. Tell them if they come near Dust Hollow, they won't find graves waiting. They'll find fire. He sneered. You think they'll be scared of you? She leaned close. They should be. She turned and walked away. By dawn, the boy slept wrapped in Levi's coat beside the fire. Malden Carver was gone, riding east with a broken face and blood in his mouth. Clara sat apart from them, her shoulder bound tight, staring into the flames. "You let him live," Levi said. "I wanted the message louder than a grave." Levi nodded. "You think it'll work?" she asked. He looked into the distance. "Might not." "Then let him come." Levi chuckled. "You really are something, Clara Vaughn." She didn't smile, just added another log to the fire. As the sun rose over the bluffs, casting gold across the blood-soaked ground, Clara stood and looked east. The road ahead wasn't peace. It was war. But she wasn't afraid of it anymore. And if the ghosts of men rode toward her, hungry for blood, she'd be waiting, rifle in hand, eyes wide open, and her boy safe.